Welcome to Big Hoss's Tailgate.
Computer. Cool. And now we're off. So how's it going? Where you're from? Are you in Nashville?
I am. I'm in Nashville, but I'm from Southwest Louisiana.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So I follow your Instagram. You do a lot of country music history and videos like that in your on your Instagram page. And I love like a lot of the stories I've heard because I used to watch. Like my brother was a big like TNN fan.
Yeah,
They would have the George Jones show, and George would tell all kinds of stories. And I was like, I love the fact that you don't get that anymore. Like they don't have
right.
anything. I'm glad that your page is like an outlet for that, man.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, there's kind of a big gap in country music that luckily people like myself are able to fill. But yeah, those old TNN shows were great. Ralph Emery and all those guys were fantastic. Um, but there has been a void in country music without TNN. CMT is not what it used to be. So there was really just an opening in social media to do that. And I just love country music so much and saw that opening. So, I kind of took it.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. It's nice to have someone step in. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Your name's Dillon. Crap, I gotta remember that. Weldon.
Doing Weldon. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm from Southwest Louisiana. Just love country music. Been doing country music content creation for about 5.5 years.
Okay.
Um, but I've loved it since I was a kid. I was raised on country music. So I tell this story often, but when I was 3 years old, I asked for a Sony Walkman and Johnny Paycheck's Greatest Hits cassette back in the '90s, and got it and burned it up. First song I ever learned all the words to was "Time Marches On" with Tracy Lawrence, which is a Bobby Braddock tune, which is incredible because I've since become friends with Bobby Braddock, and so to get to be a part of this world, I didn't have any connections in the country music industry at all down in
Hmm.
Southwest Louisiana. So to be a part of the country music world it's pretty incredible. It really is. It's a dream come true for me.
Yeah, because I mean I used to go to Nashville like almost every like Christmas break from work, and I would just go
Hmm.
down for a week and just party, and I would just go hit broad. I used to hit Broadway, but then like my one last time there was like one year I went and I was friends with a guy. He used to play at Losers in Midtown.
Yeah,
His name's Craig Curtis, and he told me he's like Broadway's fun. He goes, but if you want to see real country, like the real Nashville, he's like you need to go to Losers. So I was like, all right, next time I go to Nashville, I'm going to Losers, and I fell in love with that place.
yeah, I love Losers. That's one of the coolest hangouts in town. I hate giving the secret away though, but that's
Oh
where
yeah,
that is the
yeah, it's
cool.
good. Cool. I might have to sneak that one out. But I remember when that place was like, it wasn't as big as you see it now. Like it was
Yeah,
literally just the outside, and like you had the front part, and that's it. There was no top half. There was no all that stuff. And then next door was Winners.
yeah. I've had a lot of fun, a lot of good times in Losers, and I'm not a bar hopper by any means. I'm married, and so I'm not one to go out bar hopping. But I've been to some cool, private shindigs over there in Raleigh Greens next door. I've recorded podcasts there. Steve, who owns the place, he's a great guy, and they've been good to me. And yeah, I'm a big fan of Losers.
Oh yeah, I met Steve like the I think it was New Year's Eve or something, and told him I was like, yeah, I'm from Pittsburgh, and was hanging out down there, and I think he bought me like some Patron shots. Like this was like 2017, I think 2018
uh,
maybe. Yeah, so it was like I met those guys. I met Irv. Irv was a guy like I used to like. I mean, he's since passed,
yeah,
and I would sit next. Like I was like I think I would just whenever like they used to have a jukebox in there, so I would go and like put in like a bunch of old country songs. And
Hmm.
I remember he was like talking one time to somebody, and I seen him like look up, like who's playing this, and then looked over and was like, gave me like a thumbs up kind of thing because I was playing like very deep cut like old songs,
Yeah,
and I just started like just talking like just casually like, hey man, like just talking about just music in general. And this dude would just start telling stories, but he would say someone's name like, yeah, I remember one time like Alan and George. I was like, Alan? He's like, Jackson, George Strait. Like, like, oh, like he's telling like some good stories.
yeah.
Yeah.
You reminded me of when I was in college. My cousin Lance and I, we were living in a place together, and we were working at a slaughterhouse actually. After school, we'd go in there and butcher hogs and stuff, and get us a little spending money. And we'd go. There was a bar, I think it was called BJ's, right down the road. And we would go in there and take whatever money we made at the slaughterhouse, $100 bill or whatever, and go stick it in the jukebox and buy it out for pretty much the remainder of the time we intended to be there,
Yep.
which was usually till closing, you know. But uh, we'd go in there, and it'd be Keith Whitley and Gary Stewart, a lot of Gary Stewart, Hank Jr., Merle Haggard, that kind of stuff. And we there was a couple times we just about tied up in fights with people over that. They would get plumb mad that we bought the jukebox out with old country songs. You know, they'd come in there and try to put on some hip hop or something. I'm like, hey, if you got the money, buy it out before we do.
My there's a bar like where I like right over the hill from me where I grew up. And there was a sign on the jukebox that said like we have the right to skip any song that you put on there. So like somebody would come in like, "Oh, I'm going to put some like, hip hop on." They go over and skip it and they're like, "We told you. Like look at the vibe of this place." There
Yeah,
was a huge giant photo. I think it's the same one that you see in Losers where it's Hank Williams is still it was like a picture of Hank Williams and at the top there was like a little plaque and it said Hank Williams is still the king of this honky tonk. And I
yeah,
was like, hell yeah, like this is a real bar. Let's go.
yeah, yeah. Those are my kind of hangouts.
So how'd you get started like in like the music thing, like the music business? Like I guess it's the music business.
Well, I started writing at a very young age. I mean, I've always loved to write. I remember the third grade writing stories. You know, I wouldn't pay attention in class. I'd make up stories and write them. But it was about when I was 14, I guess, when I started writing songs and really fell in love with songwriting. And I've been writing songs ever since. And uh, learned how to play the guitar around 16 and just hanging out with friends. I'm from a very small town, so there's not a lot to do. So that was one of our main things to do is go down to the creek and, build a fire and play music. So then I get out of college. I got a degree in agriculture business. And I get out of college and I built houses, which is what my family did for near about 10 years. And around COVID, I started is whenever, TikTok really made a change from a dancing app to what it is now.
Mm-hmm.
And Grady Smith had put up a video on YouTube that country music was taking over TikTok. And what he meant by it in the video was that a lot of musicians were starting to gain traction on there. So I was like, well, that looks like an opening for me to maybe get some of my songs out there. And so I got on there and through trial and error, just found out what worked and what didn't. And I've always loved the history of country music. I think it's just as important as any other piece of the puzzle. So I'd get on there, be reading a Waylon biography or Merle or something, and come across a cool story, and I'd get online and tell it. And that started doing really well. I'm like, man, people really are like me and enjoy these stories. I'm gonna keep on telling them. So I started doing that, and I did that for about 3 years, and never. I got up to about 30,000 followers, which was to me was huge. That was mind blowing that there was 30,000 people who cared to listen to me, So I moved up in 2022, I think it was, to at the end of 22 to Montana. Me and my wife did, and I was doing a construction job up there as a project manager. I was up there for a little while, and then I moved down to Austin for a year, and ended up getting a call from a guy who was like, "Hey, we'll pay you 20% more if you come to Houston. We got a big job coming up." So we moved out to a rent house in Houston, and just got there, man. We hadn't been there a week, and the guy messages me like, "Hey, job fell through." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, the job fell through. We don't have it." And I was like, "Well, do you have anything? Like, we moved out here. Like, we have a rent house." He was like, "Nah, we don't have anything right now. I'll let you know if something comes up." So I'm like, "Well, now I'm out here in Houston with nothing." Luckily, I had a good savings from being out in Austin. And so I was like, "Well," I told my wife, "I'm just going to take some time, a few weeks, couple months, whatever, and just figure out really where we need to be at and what we need to do." So I applied for some jobs here and there around Houston in the construction industry. Nothing was clicking, and I'm a pretty spiritual person, and I went out on my front porch one day and I was fed up, man. And I said, "God, your book says that the birds don't worry about what they're gonna eat, and the plants don't worry about what they're gonna wear. So let's see what you got." And said that prayer, and about 2 or 3 days later, I got a notification from TikTok that they were going to roll out the creator rewards program that paid exceptionally well compared to what they paid before. Before, you was lucky if you made $100 a year, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and this was going to actually start paying. And which didn't mean a whole lot to me because I wasn't getting very many views at the time. If I got 10,000 views on video, I was doing real good. And I put out a video about 3 days after that. So this is 5 or 6 days after I said that prayer. I put out a video of Hank Jr. falling off the mountain, and it got
I've seen that
like
video. I've seen that. I think I've seen that you telling that story on there.
yeah, it got like a million and a half views, and I got a check off of that one for $700. And so I'm like, wow, if I can do that one time, I can surely do it again. And I haven't swung a hammer since.
Oh, it,
That was 2.5 years ago.
it's weird, like what will take off and what doesn't. Like, I mean, when
Yeah,
I like, for instance, like when I'm making like comedic, like comedy posts and stuff, like I'm doing podcast things. I'm working hard trying to get the poster and get this thing to look right, and I'll get like 112. I'm like,
yeah.
seriously? But then I'll find something stupid on CapCut and put that out there, and all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, you got 12,000 views on this. You're like, what? What did I do? I don't understand like what I did. Like,
Yeah, it's a weird man. It's becomes the biggest part of my life, really, because it's my full-time job. So it's it's become almost scientific to me now, like what hits and what don't, and times and time of day, different days, what works. I'm always thinking about that kind of stuff, and I think you have to, to be successful at it, and you know, constantly backing up to when I had that first video pop off. My friend Josh Walker, who is a fantastic sports content creator, he's doing it full time too. He and I both at the time were not full time content creators, not even close. And we made a pact to each other, like, you know what? Let's post consistently for 1 year. Let's keep each other accountable for it and post consistently for 1 year and try to make each video that we post better than the last and just see how far we can get. I had no idea how far I would get in that year. No idea. Like I thought I might end up here, and I ended up way above the moon. It was insane. I started off that May with 30,000 followers, and by the end of the summer had 100,000. And that was a couple years ago, just right around 2 years ago. and we just hit 1 million last week across
Nice.
everything. So it's been 2 years from 30,000 to 1 million, and it feels like a lifetime because so much has happened in those 2 years. But that's a relatively short amount of time, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, I love it, like like the stuff you're able to dig up, and especially like there's so many like stories out there that you can do things
Mm.
off of, and it's like eventually you're like, okay, I ran out of stories. Now what? Like now you're like, okay, well I can feature artists that maybe people don't know about, like things like that. Like it's weird how you have to try and come up with different stuff to fill in the
Well,
find content.
pivoting is what I call it. When one thing stops working, you you need to pivot to the next thing and figure out what's going to work. And if you're not good at that, you're going to have a hard time. You have to be able to shift. Like I started out, some of my most successful stuff at the beginning was I did a series called Dark Dark Songs in Country Music. And
Mm.
I don't even know how many parts I did that because there's a lot of dark songs in country music. But that was very successful for me until it wasn't. And then I pivoted and did another series and then pivoted. I had the series, um, kids of country music musicians who sound like their parents. I had that series, and that one was always successful, but there's just not that many, kids that sound like their parents. So it didn't last long, but that was a very successful series for me. But it's always about the pivot. Now I'm in the podcast world, so a lot of my content now is clips, short form from the podcasts, which have been doing really well for me. And I'm very thankful for that. That's been doing really well for me. And it's been so cool to get to sit down with people who I've considered my heroes and listen to my whole life.
Yeah, I think I seen you on with I hope I get this right because I was pretty sure that's who it was. I was like, I think it was Clay Walker I seen you sitting down with.
Yeah, that was the last one we put out. I went down to Clay's house and we filmed down there. Clay's a good dude. That one was a lot of fun to do. We've had Randy Travis on and Travis Tritt. Lots of good folks and lots of good folks coming up. I just did Mac McAnally day before yesterday. God, what an incredible career he's had. It's not up yet. I haven't even edited it. That's another thing. I'm a one man operation.
Same, same. I'm doing all my
I
stuff is like I'm still like trying to figure it out. Like,
I take the computer I'm talking to you on, all my lights, my mic stands, mics, cameras, camera stands, everything loaded up in the trunk, go out to Clay Walker's house or whoever, unload it, set it up, and then we film. I break it down, bring it home, and it's me. My buddy Grayson comes and helps me when he can. Holiday comes and helps me when he can. But it's just a one man operation, and it's been really a lot of people ask me like who edits your videos and stuff like that. I've never paid anybody to do anything for me. It's not really overwhelming to me yet. My hope is that it gets to the point, where it's overwhelming and it gets to the point where enough money's coming in where I can hire people to help me. But for now, it's just a one man pony show.
yeah, I mean, I was listening to like I think I was listening to Joe Rogan and he was talking about like for a podcast, he's like, because some of his friends, because they have teams where like he's like, you have a bunch of like you have like 5 or 6 guys. He's like, what do you need all these guys for? He's like, you guys only needs to be just you and one other guy. Because that's
Yeah.
all you really need most of the time. That's just one guy to make sure everything's running behind the scenes. Because everything else is just you and them. You know what I
Yeah, I
mean?
mean, if you have a studio where people can come in and you can have a producer like Joe has Jamie,
Yeah.
you can have somebody live switching, and when the podcast is over, it's ready to post.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I don't have a studio yet. That's a big goal of mine, but I mean, it takes a lot of money, to rent a space and all that. But if I ever do get that point, that's the plan. I would have a producer to live switch and stuff, and that would make my life 100 times easier than hauling this equipment around and then having to sit there and edit it myself. It gets time consuming. So, but at the same time, I love it. So you always hear, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. And that's how I feel. T.G. Shepherd told me one day, he said, man, you must be the hardest working man in Nashville. And I said, and I thought about it. I was like, I don't really feel like a hardworking man, but I guess from the outside looking in, I am all the time running somewhere and doing this and that. So it seems like it, but I have so much fun with it. I don't really consider it hard work.
Oh yeah, I mean it's like, oh geez, I have to go talk to Travis Tritt today. Yeah, this is gonna be such hard work to do. I mean, I would be nervous because like I've had some like I had a guy opens for Bill Burr on the podcast, and like the entire time I'm thinking to myself, what can I talk about? Because it's like I just when you have moments like this, your brain just decides to leave for the day, and you're like,
Yeah.
wait, I needed you here. Like get in because you're. I think it's just you get nerves. You're so excited, and you're like, I don't want to ask something dumb, and him be like, why did you ask me that? Like I'm like, my bad, dude.
Yeah. My podcast is, and I get a lot of compliments on my interview style, but to me, I just go in there and really just let them go because most of the people I'm interviewing, almost all of them really, are legends. And I kind of steer the conversation. What I like to do, I call them like legacy interviews. I like to start, from childhood and then work through the years, do it chronologically, and I just kind of steer it that way and just let the stories flow, unless there's specific stories that I want. Like when I did Ray Wiley, I had to hear some of those towns and guy stories, so I'm going to ask about those. But for the most part, I like to let the person I'm interviewing talk. That's what we're there for.
Yeah, I got to see Ray Wiley Hubbard a couple. Oh man, and the more that's what's weird. You start thinking back before COVID, and then it's like
Mm,
it feels like it's like forever ago.
yeah,
I
yeah,
seen him like 7 years ago. I think it was him, Wade Bowen, and Co Wetzel, and they played like my hometown in Washington, PA, at a baseball field, and it was so cool because my buddy was working at the radio station at the time, and he was trying to promote Texas country in Pittsburgh.
yeah,
Pittsburgh's a very hard town to like get people to like new stuff. If it's not already established, they're like, I don't care. It's
yeah.
weird.
Yeah, I love Ray Wiley. That was one of my top favorite ones that I've done so far, just because he's had such an extensive and legendary career and been around, some of my favorite people, Towns and Guy and Willie and Blaze Foley and Jerry Jeff Walker and all these folks. So to just be with a guy who's a legend himself and to get to talk about these other legends that he, you know, cut his teeth with, that was just that was one of the coolest things I've ever got to do. And Ray's just such a sharp, quick witted guy. I enjoyed the heck out of that.
Oh yeah, I mean like how I heard of him was like listening to Eric Church. Like Eric Church would reference him and then like bring him into
Yeah,
stuff, and I was like, oh, like who's this dude? And I started looking into him, like, oh wow, this guy's been around forever. Like, how come he's not bigger? Like
yeah,
how is his name not thrown around all the time? Like, it's
yeah,
crazy how you'll find these guys that are like huge in other parts of the country, but you've never
yeah.
heard of them because their music doesn't get played nationwide. It gets played like in certain areas.
Yeah, that's especially true with Texas and Oklahoma and places like that, especially Texas, that's its own world. Like I told you, I lived in Austin for a year, which I live in Southwest Louisiana, about 40 minutes from the Texas line. So I ain't far from Texas. So I kind of grew up around that kind of music. And it is its own world, and it's cool. It's cool that it's its own world. That's exactly why Willie Nelson and Waylon went down there in the 70s, because you don't feel appreciated in Nashville, that's okay. We'll go down to Texas and they'll appreciate us.
So I didn't realize is that when they went to Austin, because I watched the Outlaw documentary, I think it was on
Mm,
CMT when they aired it, that the woman that came up with the Outlaw name, she was always on CMT. She had that country diner.
yeah,
Like they would always show she was like a personality on there, and I had no idea who the woman was. I was like, who is like this woman? And then I seen the documentary. I was like, oh, that's who she was. Like, okay, this makes now I understand what she is.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's funny, the whole outlaw movement, how big it became. to where I mean it's still around today. You know, people calling themselves outlaw country, and none of them asked for that. You know, Willie and Waylon, they didn't ask to be called outlaws. In fact, if you listen to some of their songs, I think they were kind of offended to be called outlaws, but
Yeah, don't this outlaw bit just yeah, don't you think
got
this
out of
outlaw bit
hand.
don't yeah. I
Yeah.
tell
Uh,
I tell you what, do you watch you like the story like you like the music history and stuff. Did you watch any of the Tales from the Tour Bus?
oh yeah, I'm a huge, not just a huge country music history fan, but a huge Mike Judge fan. I love
Oh, King of
Mike
the Hills
Judge. So
returning. Let's go.
yes, that's King of the Hill's one of my favorite shows, if not my favorite show of all time. So I'm pumped about that. So when he was coming out with a country music series, I was like, this is about to be one of the greatest things of all time, and it was. That that series is so good.
Even the second season, because like they went to funk on the second season, those
Yeah,
ones are wild too.
yeah, yeah. It
Oh,
was such a good series. I wish he would put out more. I wish he would put out another country, you know, season because there's some guys that they didn't touch on that, you know,
oh
had
yeah.
some wild stories and whatnot.
Yeah, that's what I think the one of the funniest ones that me and my brother were cracking up at is when George Jones went in his cocaine days
Hmm.
and he was talking about there was the old man and the duck and he would
Yep.
like talk like Donald Duck. And he threw
There's
the
audio. There's audio of George talking like Donald Duck.
Oh,
You
is
could
there?
probably find it on YouTube. It was on the radio show. I don't remember if it was Ralph Emery's or what radio show it was, but yeah, there is audio of George as the duck.
Yeah. I do I do like when you go to Nashville, especially if you hang around the Opryland area, how much
Mhm.
like old Nashville is still there. Like you can still feel like some of it's still around. Like yeah, like they had like the old Shotgun Red puppets and stuff. And I was like,
Yeah,
"Oh, that's cool that they have that cuz like most people like it was before my time, but my brother knew what it was.
yeah,
So it was like kind of cool to still see that some of that stuff there.
yeah. And that's a cool area to go around. The Opry, the Texas Troubadour, which they've just renamed. It's like Music City something, which I don't know why they renamed it, but that's a cool place. Nashville Palace is iconic, obviously. You know, Randy Travis started out frying French fries in there. You know,
I think they recorded. I think you can find like an early recording of him before like he blew up, and
yeah,
they
Randy
introduced him as
Ray.
yeah, he's Randy Ray. It's like ooh, like
Yeah,
there's some of those like I think you can find like an early Alan Jackson, like when he's just a guy in the audience and he's singing a song and everybody's like, what? Like this
yeah.
guy's really
So
good.
that was on TNN on Star Search. So when Alan moved to town, he had a job in the mail room of TNN, and I guess they knew that he could sing, so they was going to let him sing out into the commercial break. And Keith Stegall was actually one of the judges on Star Search that season, so he hears Alan, and he is Alan's career producer.
Hmm.
So he's still producing Alan. So that's when he discovered Alan Jackson. So it was kind of, you know, on that TV show is part of where he got his start. He also got some help from Glenn Campbell, thanks to his wife, who was working at an airline and met Glenn Campbell. I want to say in Atlanta at the airport, and gave him one of Alan's tapes. And Glenn was a big help at the beginning too.
Oh, I do love some Glenn Campbell. You talk about one of the saddest documentaries is uh oh what is that called? It was like the name of his last album too. I'm Still Me or something.
Yeah, he had that song, that one song, "Not Gonna Miss You."
Ooh, that was ooh.
Man, talk about gut you, man. That was hard to listen, and it was all over the radio. But that was a hard listen, man, because it was the truth. It was country music to the bone. You know, three chords and the truth,
Yep.
and it was the truth. But it was a harsh truth, you know. And sometimes country music's like that. But what a sad song, man.
Well, that's what you were talking about, like darkest country songs. And I'm thinking, and the first one that popped in my head was Long Black Veil. Like
On
how
Black Bell, Long Black Veil is dark, but it ain't even close to the darkest, man. There's some, if you want to hear dark, the darkest song in country music, in my opinion, is Psycho by Eddie Noack. It was written by Leon Payne. So Leon Payne, they called him the blind balladeer. He was a blind man, but he also wrote The Selfishness in Man, and probably his most well-known song was Lost Highway by Hank Williams.
Mm-hmm.
But Psycho was a song that nobody had talked about or heard of or listened to in decades. And me and my buddy Holiday, we like the obscurities and stuff. And I had that series going on Dark Country Music, and I did a video on Psycho, and it went crazy. It went super viral. People were like, "Man, this is dark, dark." And so then I reached out to Patrick over at Country versus Metal, and he was doing some reaction videos at the time. I said, "React to this one; it'll do well for you." So he did it, and it did really well for him too. And Holiday did a video, and it did well for him. And next thing you know, it becomes a trend on TikTok. This is a 50-year-old song, obscure country song, and it becomes a trend on TikTok. And I've often wondered, whoever gets, Leon Payne's royalty checks are probably scratching their head like, how in the world are we getting? We went from getting 2 cents every 4 months on Psycho to now we're getting paid on it. But you probably saw it. It's you think I'm psycho, don't you, Mama?
Oh yes,
But
I have heard that song.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it's about a guy who he's a psycho and he killed a bunch of people and he's telling his mom about it. Like last night I woke up standing over Johnny's bed and I killed his dog and I killed the little girl at the park and I killed this couple last night and buried them underneath the sycamore. And then at the end of it, he's like, Mama, won't you please get up? So at the end of it, it's revealed that he killed his mother. It's super dark, man.
Damn.
Super dark
It's like
song.
I always heard that part of it, but I didn't listen to the whole song. Now it's like I'm gonna have to listen to this on the way out tonight.
Oh yeah, it's eerie, man. It's an eerie, dark song. That one and Knoxville Girl. Knoxville Girl is a bluegrass song, but I included it in my series. And it's basically a man doesn't want to marry his girl, his fiance. So instead of just breaking it off, he bludgeons her to death. And I mean, it's graphic. Like it talks about I slung her by her hair and blood was everywhere. It's threw her in the
Jeez.
river. Yeah, it's and
That,
this
that
is an old song too. It's actually based off like a several 100-year-old ballad from like Ireland or something, but they changed it to Knoxville Girl, and it's a dark one.
that's when you almost want to look and go, "Who hurt you, man?" Like,
Yeah,
like what was her
and
name? Is she still alive? Like, let's just check on him.
yeah. If I heard somebody singing that song for the first time, I'd probably just get away from them as quickly as possible. That's some
So,
dark stuff.
what do you think is one of your favorite stories that you covered?
My favorite story that I covered would have to be about Gary Gentry and the ride. And I'd never heard that story until I had a Gary's one of my best friends. He wrote The Ride in 1959, the one I loved back then, The Chicken and Black, uh, Drinking and Driving, just a bunch of legendary country music songs. And I had him on the podcast. And he told me a story that I had not heard before. I'd heard the story about Hank's ghost. There's
Him
the
getting drunk
story.
and yelling at Hank's ghost.
Yes. But the story that I hadn't heard was that he came to Nashville. He was riding his bicycle when he was a boy, and he had a little transistor radio on the handlebar, and that's when he heard Hank Williams for the first time. Well, he goes home and he tells his mom, "Hey, I want to go see Hank Williams. I just heard him on the radio, and he's incredible. I want to hear him." His mom said, "Well, that's not possible because he just died, and a few years ago." Well, he became an obsessed Hank Williams fan, and they decided to go to Nashville because he lived out in East Tennessee. So they decided to take a trip to Nashville, him and his mom and his grandma. And he was 14 years old. Gets to town with one thing on his mind. He wants to see Hank Williams' house. So he gets here, and they went to right in front, right on Broadway, in front of Ernest Tubbs record shop, and he gets out, and there's two men there talking, and I can't ever remember the guy's name. It's the guy who sang Green Acres, though, was there, and he asked him if he knew where Hank's house was. He said no, but he probably does, and it was Ernest Tubbs standing next to him.
Oh,
And so
nice.
Ernest Tubb gives a kid, Gary Gentry, directions to where Hank's house is. So they go over there, and Gary's driving at 14 years old and drives up, and he hops out of the car, and his mom's like, "What are you doing? You're going to get us arrested." He's like, "I got to knock on the door and see if I can see the inside." So he goes and knocks on the door, and the maid answers, and he says, "I'm the biggest Hank Williams fan, and I want to see the house where my hero lived." And the maid said, "Well, who's with you out there?" And he said, "My grandma and mom." She said, "Well, tell them to come in. I'll show you all around." So they get out and go in, and his mom and grandma were just in awe of the kitchen. It was a state of the art for back then, and they're looking around. And Gary sneaks down the hall, and he's looking around, and a woman comes out of the bathroom with her hair done up in a towel wearing a bathrobe, and it's Audrey. And
Oh, wow.
she says, "Son, can I help you?" She's shocked that there's just this random kid in her house, and he tells her why he's there, and she said, "Okay, well, I'll show you around." So she showed him Hank Williams Jr.'s bedroom, which he said was just crazy, and took him to the garage and showed him the Cadillac that Hank died in was sitting in the garage. So
Phew.
he got to see that, and showed him around, and they go to leave, and they're walking out of the door, and this is the part that gives me chills every time I tell it. They walk out of the door, and he says, "Miss Williams, thank you for showing me all of Mr. Williams' things. I'm just such a huge fan." And she said, "Well, you don't have to call him Mr. Son. The whole world called him Hank."
Mm.
And that line stuck with Gary for a couple decades until he wrote The Ride.
One of my favorite memes is that cat wearing the cowboy hat with its mouth open, like over the
Uh-huh.
mountain. And someone put that as the caption, like the whole world calls me Hank. And you see like the cat throwing its head back. And I was like, that's exactly how you sing that song. It's exactly
Yep.
how you do it.
Yep. And so for me to realize that like that line came straight from Audrey Williams is when he told me that, I was like, I couldn't believe it. And I instantly knew, I was like, when I tell this story to people, it's going to go insane. And it did. It got millions of views. And because it's just one of those stories that's like so out there and cool, like the chances of all that coming together like it did. And her saying, "You don't have to call him Mr. Son, the whole world called him Hank." Like, wow, it's incredible.
Yeah, I got excited one time. I wanted to go check out the George Jones Museum. Like it was still like kind of newish in Nashville. So
Yeah.
I went out. I mean, I was hungover and from the night before, and I was like, I'm just wandering around Nashville. Just I'd get an Uber from my Airbnb and just walk around. And I went in, and here it just happened to be that time where George's wife was still, his widow was there, like the one
Nancy.
yeah. And she's just sitting there hanging out, and people are coming up and talking to her and stuff. And I'm thinking, like, why not just walk up? And I was just wanted to tell her, like, my grandfather was a huge George Jones fan, like,
Yeah.
I mean, cassette tapes, like, that was his favorite singer. And it was just kind of cool just to talk to her a little bit, just to be like, oh, this is the closest I'll get to ever meeting George Jones, but this is cool. Like, it's weird when you like meet people like that because then you're like, oh, this is just another person. Like it's crazy. Like, you know what I mean? Like this is like, in your head you're building up that this is this huge legend, and then when you meet him, it's like, oh, and you get to know him a little bit, like just one on one a little bit. You're like, oh, this is just some. If this person, if this wasn't a thing, they would just be like a nice, lady I met in the store.
Yeah. Yeah, Nancy Sweet. I talked to her a couple of days ago. Congratulated her on the new George Jones statue at the Ryman. I'm going to have her on the podcast pretty soon. She's a real sweet lady. But I met George. I went to two George Jones concerts when I was a kid, and we went out to his bus after one of the shows because we was trying to meet him and get his autograph. And he wasn't feeling well that evening, but he took time to sign our stuff. And what a legend, man. I wish I could have. had more time to really talk to him and get to know him. But Nancy's a sweetheart. I've met her several times at this point, but we're gonna have her on the podcast pretty soon, and I can't wait to sit down and get some of those inside stories on George.
Oh yeah, because it's like that. I mean, that's what I like listening to. I think Theo Vaughn had Brooks and Dunn on,
Yeah,
and when Ronnie Dunn's telling stories about Johnny Cash, you know what I mean? Just that he's like, I'm sitting
yeah,
next to Johnny Cash, and we're just watching TV, and it's like, this is crazy. I'm sitting next to Johnny. He's like, I'm nobody at this point, and they're just being nice to me.
yeah. I've been in those situations, man. Just a couple weeks ago, I was at a party and I was there with Jamie Johnson and Randy Hauser, and Jake Worthington, and people who I really admire. And like Jamie is someone I've listened to since I was in high school. I absolutely love Jamie. We're gonna have him on tonight, and you just kind of step back sometimes, and you're like, man, how did I get here? You know, it just doesn't
Hmm.
seem right, but it is, and you're there, and it's just it's really cool, you know.
Oh yeah, I mean, so one time this happened to me. I think this was yeah, this was like 2021. I went down to Nashville, and I met a friend, or I met somebody one like on a previous trip, and he's like, "Hey, we're gonna go and like meet up for drinks or whatever." And my hotel's like right down the street, so I just walked down, and I got there a little early, and I'm getting cash out of the ATM, and I happen to catch out of the corner of my eye. I'm like, that looks a lot like Randy Hauser, but I'm not gonna say nothing because it's Nashville. No one says nothing if someone's there. You just kind of let them do their thing.
Yeah.
And I go to meet my buddy. Here he's sitting at the table. Across from him is Trent Tomlinson. And I think there was somebody else there. I couldn't remember. And then we're sitting there just talking. And I'm just keeping my mouth shut because I really don't want to say something stupid in this moment. And as we're sitting there, Randy Hauser walks over and goes, "Hey, is it cool if I sit here with you guys?" Because he's like, "I'm meeting a buddy here later, and I really don't know anybody. And I know you guys, so I'm just going to sit with you." And I'm sitting next to Randy Hauser, and I'm just like, keep your like in my head, losing my mind. But in the moment, I'm just like, "Oh, hey, how's it going, man?" Like I'm trying to play it cool, but and like at one point, my buddy and Trent Tomlinson get up to go to the bathroom. So it's just me
Hmm.
and Randy Hauser sitting there, and I'm just like, all right. I was like, I'm not trying to make a big deal of this, but always been a big fan of your music. Just saying. I was like, my dad got to see you open for Alan Jackson. As he's like, wow, that guy's got a great voice. Like, and he was cool about it. Like, he was like, he didn't like, wasn't like, oh, like I don't want to talk music. He was like, no, no, thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah, Randy's good as gold. I've been around Randy a few times. One of the, in my opinion, one of the most underrated vocalists
Oh, for sure.
ever in country music. Anything goes when everything gone is, in my opinion, one of the greatest country music songs of all time. And Randy Randy makes you feel that song the way he belts it. I mean, it's incredible. It really is.
I'm trying to remember the name of this song. It's like off his first album. This song is amazing. Oh, ooh, I don't think it's Sleep. Uh, 1 second. We almost got this. Off his first one. They call me. I think it was Anything Goes. I think it's I'll Sleep.
Yeah, yeah.
There's one. I think it's remember. I think it's one where it's his dad reading him a bedtime story or something, and he's
Mhm.
just like the chorus. It basically it ends with like his dad dying when his dad dies, and he's saying the same thing that his dad said to him when he was growing up, and I was like that's one of those I was driving to work and be like, I have to make sure I'm clear before I go in. Like
Yeah, yeah,
those any songs about your dad like that just gets me. That's a easy layup right there.
yeah. And a singer like Randy too. I mean, Randy could sing about divorce, and you could have never been married, and you're missing your wife by the end of the song.
Yeah.
It's like he's just got one. that's why, there are great singers out there, but it takes a really good singer and a stylist. And Billy Sherrill used to tell his musicians, Gary Gentry told me this, that he would hand them the lyrics and say, "This is your script. You're an actor or an actress. Act out this script." In other words, feel what's in this song when you sing it, and that's what makes the difference in a great singer, I believe. And Randy has it, and a lot of folks have it, but Randy, man, he can gut you. He can gut you on a song.
Oh yeah, I mean, look at like how he stopped loving her today. Like George
Mm.
Jones did not want like it's I think it's a known fact he did not want to do that song because of how sad that song is,
Yeah, I
and
didn't think
especially with
anybody would
his
listen to it.
yeah, and especially with his voice. His voice adds another haunting. Like I don't think there. The only person I think that comes close to matching that has to be Alan Jackson's cover when he did that at the funeral for him.
Yeah,
Because even he's breaking up when he's singing it. And it's like I don't know. Me and my parents talked about this. And my mom's like, I love George Strait. She goes, but I think Alan Jackson's the better, has the better voice. Even though
mm,
they're both legends, there's something when Alan Jackson, like even when Alan Jackson sings Blues Man,
yeah,
that song I think hits harder than Hank Jr.'s version of it. And Hank's the writer, and it's about he lived it.
yeah. Bobby Braddock, he didn't think it was even going to be a big song, and he wrote it. Him and Curly Putman, um, they didn't think that it was that big of a song. Um, but Billy Sherrill was really the one who, yeah, he was a genius, man. And I'm sure when he read the lyrics, he already heard it in his head,
Hmm.
and just knew how big it was going to be. And so he wrangled everybody in. I think it took him like a year and a half to get George's vocals laid down on it because he was, big time battling addiction and stuff at that point in his life. But what a timeless song. And I've been fortunate enough to become friends with Bobby. And he actually gave me handwritten lyrics to He Stopped Loving Her Today. So that's one of my most prized possessions
Oh,
in this
that's a
world.
frame like
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I started collecting lyrics, and I actually need to reach out to a couple of songwriters who I've had on the podcast and get some lyrics from them. But I've got some really good ones, man. I have He Stopped Loving Her Today. I have The Ride. I have Chattahoochee, um, Where Corn Don't Grow. And I actually have Blue Suede Shoes, which is written by Carl Perkins that a friend of mine gave me. So I have a really solid lyric collection. But I had Dickie Lee on the podcast. So I need to reach out to him and get She Thinks I Still Care. And I had Darn Goodman on. I need to reach out to him and get Old Red. And
oh man, I forgot about Old Red. I remember that music video came out. I was a kid. And I remember seeing that like that was like it's like an early music video I always remember because it was like him in jail and the dogs getting out.
yeah, Bobby Braddock is actually is it that video? No, he's not in Old Red. Yes, he is. He's in Old Red because Bobby Braddock produced Blake Shelton up until like all of the good, really good Blake Shelton, like Austin, Old Red, Some Beach, all those songs from the early days. Bobby Braddock was producing them, and he kind of got screwed out of that deal by some higher ups. But yeah, the cellmate in Old Red is Bobby Braddock, and in Some Beach, I think it's the dentist is also Bobby.
Mm,
Yeah, so if you go back and watch those videos, check it out.
yeah, I'll have to check it out. Have you ever got to did I think was it Midland did like a podcast series for a little bit where they were doing like they would find like these country music myths and they would find someone who was like very close to the person or they'd find the person themselves and be like, "Hey, is this true?" Or like they'd go over the story kind of thing. Then at the end, they'd bring the person in and be like, "Tell the real version now." And I think one of it was I can't remember his name. It's the guy who wrote "Friends in Low Places." They said he sold the rights to the song to pay his bar tab,
Yeah,
and he's like, it's like kind of true, kind of not, because it was one of those like they held it until I came back and paid it, then they kind of gave it back kind of thing.
Yeah,
But it's like still kind of funny, like, oh yeah, you sold the rights to your song just to pay a bartender.
I was. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Was it Earl Bud Lee?
Yes, that's who it
Yeah.
was, I think.
I'll tell you another myth that can be squashed as of today. I went and had lunch with TK Kimbrell and Kurt Motley today, and they managed Toby Keith his entire career.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard the story of Toby Keith and Chris Christopherson getting into it?
I have heard that.
Yes, it's a pretty popular story that goes around about twice a year. And I've actually told the story because I read it.
Yeah.
That they were at Willie's 70th birthday party, and Toby walked by, and Chris said, "Hey, none of that right wing stuff, or I'll have to whip you or something," And they got in a spat over it. Is the story. So I asked TK today. I was like, "Is there any truth to that?" And he said, "Man, I was with Toby when we went up there to New York, and we got there, and it was basically a who's who, of people. Um, Keith Richards and some other folks was there, and he said we got there and went through the door, and there was a boxer. I can't remember what he said the name of the boxer was. Some big boxer. I'm not into boxing, so I couldn't tell you. But Toby was into boxing, and he wanted to meet this guy. So he kind of makes a beeline for this guy. Chris and Willie and Ethan Hawke, I guess, and a couple others were standing there talking. And he stopped for a second, said hello to Chris and Willie and everybody. They shook hands, went and talked to the boxer, and they had to go somewhere. So they weren't there very long. They ended up leaving. And TK was like, "Man, none of that ever happened. Like, there was no spat or anything. Like, it was a completely made up story." So that's one rumor that can be squashed.
Nice. I'm glad. Well, hey, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like Toby Keith is probably since he passed is probably my favorite country artist of all time.
Hmm.
Like I've been a Toby Keith fan. I can tell you the exact moment I became like obsessed like with Toby Keith was the Dukes of Hazard in Hollywood. He does
Yeah.
Jackie Dawn Tucker in the beginning, and at the end he does How Do You Like Me Now? How Do You Like Me Now made me a Toby Keith fan.
Yeah.
And I never got to meet him. Closest I got, Toby, it was like 2016. This is on YouTube. It's on my like YouTube page for it. Um, it was 2016. I was supposed to take a girlfriend. We broke up. So I asked my brother if he'd go. He goes, I'll go, but we have to be in the pit. So I sell those tickets, buy the pit tickets, and we are right up front, right up to the stage. And my brother keeps pointing at the Toby's tequila bottle on like by the drum stand. And he keeps like I see him look over at my brother and just goes like this. And then next thing you know, me and my brother are chatting it up. We look over and Toby's standing above us and throws my brother the tequila bottle. And he takes a drink out of it. He pours some in my cup, and then Toby goes like, "Pass it on." And he's just like, "I really don't want to pass it on, but he's right there, so he just passed
Yeah.
it on." He's like, "So somebody's got that tequila bottle,"
Yeah.
and we're like, "Okay, that was cool." And then he's singing "Should Have Been a Cowboy," and again we look up. Toby's standing above us, and he just yells, "Sing it!" and throws us the microphone. And we're just like shocked. We're like, "Should have been a cowboy," and like I think I flubbed like one of the lines because I was so like in the like shocked. And then I passed the mic behind me to these two girls, and they finish it. And then he's up there like, "Hey, like, give it back!" And I got to hand him the microphone on stage. And I'm not gonna lie, I was fangirl. I was like, like, and that was like
Yeah. That's pretty
I was like,
cool, man.
that's my moment right there.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, I got
That
to
is.
see. Did you ever get to meet him?
I never got to meet Toby. I got to see him when I was a kid around 2004, I guess. Blake Shelton was opening for him. Blake still had the mullet. It was a pretty incredible concert because that was Toby was hot. Back in 2004, he was on fire.
Oh yeah.
Um, so it was pretty incredible. I wasn't, but 2004, I wasn't, but 10 or 11 years old. But it was a good one.
I remember, see, my brother, like he has the sold out. He has a record at the big like amphitheater in Pittsburgh. It's
Yeah,
sold out, and they said never to be broken. Like he sold out like 3 nights or something. It was like 2 or 3 nights. He sold that place out, and it was like
yeah,
a record attendance. And they're like, this will never be broken because we can't fit this many people in here anymore.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, we got to see him. I think I got the first time I saw him. He came with Gary Allen, Trace Atkins, and him. And then I think the next year I got to see him. It was the first time seeing Eric Church, and it's when Chief dropped. So this was like
Mm,
the new Eric Church, and I was like, this dude just melted everyone's face off. I was like, holy crap! And I was listening to an interview. I think the radio station like was talking to Toby on the phone, and he's like, the thing is about Eric, he's like, you forget how many hits this guy has until he starts playing, and that was
yeah,
at the time, like 2011. Now it's like super. I don't even know what you say is a superstar at this point. I don't know. I think he's hit legend status almost.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He's up there. I can dig some Eric Church for sure. Um, yeah, I've been to some pretty incredible ones over the year, man. I think if I had to pick, a favorite concert that I had been to, it would have had to been Christopherson though. I got to see Christopherson right after Merle died, and he was traveling with the Strangers and Ben and Marty. And man, he was old and his voice was completely gone, but just to be in the same room and hear him sing, for the good times and Sunday morning coming down and me and Bobby McGee and to beat the devil and all these songs. It's like, man, I was just, how can you get any better than this? Is kind of how I felt, and Willie's Fourth of July picnic I've been to, that was incredible. I've seen some good ones though, man, and I met a lot of really cool people. I met Leonard Skinner when I was 15. So Gary Rosington and those guys, were still with them, original band members. And they had some cigars and offered me a cigar. I wasn't but 15, but, it's Leonard Skinner.
Yeah,
And,
it's don't ask questions. That's why I told people are like, is weed illegal? Yeah, but if Willie Nelson hands you a joint, you take a hit from the joint. There's no. I don't care if you say, "Oh yeah, I've never done drugs." You will tonight. You will tonight.
that would, if I had to, like one person that's living that I could do a podcast with, it'd be Willie. That's who I would, you know, to me that would be the pinnacle for me. That would be, there's nobody higher than that's still living that I could go to than Willie.
Oh yeah, I mean that's like how I do like my podcast is I like try to get to the people know people like on a personal level. Like, hey, tell me some stories. Like, what do you like to do? Like, what do you like to do when
Yeah,
you're not doing this? Like, whatever. So it's like that's what it's like. I want to get to that point where like you're talking to someone like Willie or whatever, and it's like, so what do you like to do? Like, just hang out. Like, I want to hear some personal. Like, tell me what you like. What's your favorite movie, dude?
yeah, yeah,
Like, is it one of yours? Like.
yeah, yeah. I'm hoping that one day the stars will align and I'll get to do that interview. Get to sit down with Willie. That would be just incredible. Like I said, I'm having Lucas on tomorrow. His son,
Oh, nice.
which is going to be incredible because I love everything Lucas does. Lucas is a phenomenal artist himself in it and has built a career entirely on his own. Just absolute talent, and I love Lucas. So it's going to be that. That was going to be a lot of fun tomorrow.
I got to see him at Farm Aid when they came to Pittsburgh. I was able
Yeah,
to see Willie, and because Willie's, he's older, so like when
yeah,
he was struggling, like Lucas would pick up the slack, which I thought was cool.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
one of the coolest things that like, one of my favorite things that Lucas Nelson did, hands down, probably has to be him and Shooter Jennings doing the cover of "Mamas Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboys" for the
yeah,
ranch. Like I would
yeah. That
never
was
skip the intro because I loved hearing that song. Like their
yeah.
version of it, I thought was amazing.
Yeah, yeah, that was a good one. I love. I enjoyed seeing those two guys come together because they're both incredible. And I've been around Lucas a couple times. Great guy. I've never been around Shooter, but this Saturday I'm flying out to Los Angeles, and Shooter's putting on a Wayland Father's Day celebration
Oh,
uh,
nice.
at the Viper Room of all places, which I thought was wild. We're celebrating Wayland at the Viper Room in Hollywood. I never would have guessed, but it's going to be really cool. I'm excited to get to meet Shooter and whoever else might be there. And hopefully I get to go back to LA and do a podcast with Shooter. I'm crossing my fingers on that one because he's, he's such a talented singer, songwriter, and producer. Um, and I admire both him and Lucas. They're seem like really good people.
So who are you listening to right now? Like, would you say?
Oh man, I listen a lot of Merle Haggard, a lot of Waylon, a lot of George Jones, Hank Jr., Loretta Lynn, Tammy Wynette. You know, as far as new stuff, Jamie Johnson, I'm really been digging Jamie's newest album. It's great. I listen to obviously Lucas and guys like that and the new stuff. I'm really interested to see what Tyler Childers' new album is going to be like with Rick Rubin producing it.
Yeah,
That's
that sounds like a really good one. See, the bad thing is when you talk country music, you're never supposed to mention things that you don't like. But
mm.
that the last one wasn't a big hit for me. Like I wasn't into it as much, but I love the first two. Like the first one's gold. Like his original like when he first came out was amazing. White House Road and Feathered Indians
Well,
is still my karaoke song.
yeah, I think that's fair though. I mean, I don't think I'm sure some artists would get upset if at people saying that they didn't like a certain album, but I'm with you. I like a lot of all of Childers' earlier stuff. I like, and a lot of people didn't like the Helms to Heaven album, but I thought it was fantastic. I loved it. Um, Rustin in the Rain fell a little flat for me. I did like that he had helped me make it through the night on there. I really enjoy his rendition of that song. But
Oh, oh yeah, and it's not, I'm not saying like it's like quality wise, it's great. I
yeah,
was just like it just like some things it's like you don't have a connection to it, and some stuff you
yeah,
can have an easy connection to it.
yeah, it fell a little bit flat for me as well. But I would be shocked, honestly, if Tyler Childers and Rick Rubin came together and it just wasn't great. So I have really high expectations, and that might not be the best way to go into an album, but it's hard not to when it's Tyler Childers, who's an incredible singer and songwriter, with Rick Rubin, who is one of the most legendary producers of all time. So I have just astronomically high hopes for it. We'll see though. So it might drop tomorrow. Who knows? Because he posted this cryptic video today, or was it last
You never
night?
know, they might shadow drop stuff and they just do that day of and it blows up. Like it's weird. Like
Yeah.
if anybody else did that, it would get nothing. You'd have a market it and everything. But then there's some people it's like, yeah, we're just dropping this now. And they're like, oh, thanks. Like, great.
Well, they put in the video right at the end of it tomorrow's date, 8 a.m. Eastern time, but it didn't say what was going to happen or anything in the video, so it's really cryptic. So I'm sure it's either a single or maybe they're going to go ahead and release the whole album. We'll see, but I'm pretty pumped about it.
Yeah. That's funny. You mentioned Jake Worthington. I got to see him in Pittsburgh a couple years
Mm,
ago. And it was
yeah,
like right when he was kind of like just on like the first Hicks tape. So like people like he wasn't really like he had some stuff out, but wasn't really like known. So when we went to go see him, he played this little place in Pittsburgh called the Craft House. There was maybe 10 people there, but
yeah,
he was playing like that old stuff, and
yeah.
I knew the songs, and he did like a little like a met with people after the show, and he goes, "I'll tell you what, because when they said we were coming to Pittsburgh, because I didn't think any of this stuff was going to hit." He goes, "But I'm kind of glad that there's some people here that knew." He's like, "He goes, man, you knew all the words." It's like, "Yeah," I said, "I grew up with this music." Like, "Yeah, I love," and his voice. He reminds me of a young Mark Chestnut.
Mm.
Like with the way his voice sounds, he always reminds me of Mark Chestnut.
I see people, comparing him to Mark looks wise. To me, man, a lot of his style reminds me a lot of Jones.
Mm-hmm.
And that's about the highest compliment I could give to anybody. And Jake is a friend. Uh, I'm not saying that because I know him and I think he's good people, which I do. Jake's real good people. Um, but he's got a lot of Jones in his style,
Oh yeah.
and that's about the highest praise in country music I think you can get. But him, and his dad, and one of his buddies and my wife went out to the steakhouse about 3 or 4 nights ago, and we of course talked country music for hours.
Oh yeah.
Um, I I believe that guy's the future of country
Oh,
music. I really do. He's got a reverence for the history, the songs. That style is making a huge comeback, and I'm a big supporter of my pal Jake Worthington. I can tell you that.
oh yeah. Like I said, he put on such a great show, and I said, and every song he puts out, like I mean, even like he has some sad songs. I was like, ooh, man, that hurt.
Yeah, yeah.
I like him. Zach, I got to see Zach Top recently, and
I hadn't met Zach yet, but man, I'm ready. I want to meet Zach. I'd love to have him on. I'm gonna have Jake on the podcast soon. I'd love to get Zach on at some point in time because those guys. The first time I met Jake, he thanked me, and I mean sincerely. He was like, "Man, you are keeping country music alive, and I just love everything you do, and I appreciate you." And I was like, "Dude, the feeling is 100% mutual. Like, if it wasn't for you, country music would be alive." And he's like, "No, if it wasn't for you, it's kind of back and forth deal." But I think really though, it takes a village, and I think we're all kind of doing our part. Um, but I just love being around those guys, man, because we all kind of have the same idea of where country music needs to be. And that's just country music, It's not like we have some radical idea. We just think it needs to be country music. And I think a lot of people agree with that. Apparently a million, because, I hit that last week. And I, I think that just shows you that there's that many people and really a whole lot more than that believe the same thing that country music needs to be country music.
well, yeah, I just miss like when CMT used to do like I mean, they used to have specials where they would go over people and stuff like that, or like have like
Mm,
little mini concerts and stuff. And now it's just all mostly reality TV, and it's like, oh yeah, we're putting Golden Girls on. What does that have to do with country music? Like, I
yeah.
like Golden Girls, don't get me wrong, but you have one Southern woman on there. Like that has nothing to do. You know what I mean?
Well, I think, TV and terrestrial radio have been dying a slow death for a while now, with streaming services, Netflix and all that, and then Spotify and YouTube Music and Pandora. You Terrestrial radio, and television has been dying a slow death, and the writing's been on the wall for a long time for a lot of these conglomerates. And um, is it unfortunate? Kind of, I guess, but it's just it's progress, and now people. The bad thing, the worst thing about it, honestly, is that the streaming platforms don't pay what radio pays,
Mm-hmm.
and it should. It should, you know, it should pay more. I'm not saying it should pay what radio pays because it's different. It's a different beast, but it should pay more than what it's paying. It's ridiculous that somebody gets millions of streams and gets $100 check in the mail. It should be a lot more. But I think I'm hoping one day those kinks are worked out. Something happens, and but it's just times are different. People get their news and stuff on the internet and social media, and they're watching Netflix and are listening to Spotify. And I hadn't turned the radio on in years. I listen to YouTube Music. I pay the subscription fee, no ads, and I can listen to whatever Merle Haggard song I want to listen to.
Yep. The
I
only
don't
thing
have to sit
sucks is
there
I
and
can't.
listen to, you know, somebody that I don't want to listen to,
Yep.
and it's just it's the times. Times have changed.
Yep. I mean, yeah, I was like, crap. I had a thought and it disappeared. That's the problem, man. That happens to me all the time. But like, yeah, it's like I mean, I pay for Spotify, and I mean, I can listen to everything except Garth Brooks. That's the only
Yeah,
thing I don't. And I'm
yeah,
kind of like,
you
all right,
got
well, I got YouTube for that, so
yeah, unless you're one of those weirdos who has Amazon Music.
yeah. Or you
Then-
subscribe to Garth's streaming service, and I'm like, come on now, like, I'm not. Just cave in like
yeah.
the rest of them. It's okay.
As much as I like songs like The Rodeo and Much Too Young to Feel This Old and those songs, it's okay. I
I'll
can,
tell you what, he has some like deep cuts that if you dig for him, you could like. There's one I can't remember which album it's on, but it's called Ireland, and
mm,
it's more of like a haunting, like almost like a battle song. And it's like
yeah,
about like yeah, but he has a great voice. Like his early like his like older songs and like I said, his deep cuts are great. The new stuff just doesn't hit with me. It's just
yeah. Those first three, Garth Brooks, No Fences, Roping in the Wind, or Rope in the Wind, um, fantastic albums, three and three. I love those albums. Then he got commercially successful, and what happened happened, and the record labels really are to blame for that. I've had my fair share of talking about this artist went pop, and but really all it boils down to is money and the labels, and you can't really blame one person for what was going down because really it's the labels and the industry, the machine, to
mhm.
blame.
Well, it's like I said, there's some people that, they get the fame and they're like, well, the money's good, so I'm just going to keep playing what's popular. And then
Yeah,
there's other guys that are like, I'll play the game until I get enough money I can do what I want. Eric
yeah,
Church is one of those guys because I said, would you believe the guy that did Hell on the Heart would have done Stick That in Your Country song? Like, you don't, like, it's completely, like, I think in the video he was dressed like a 1950s style and they're playing like a sock hop, like, and it's super, like he had some really poppy songs when he first started out, like kind of poppy. But
yeah.
and now it's a completely different ball game. You know what I mean? Like it is nice whenever you see someone go, oh yeah, they just kind of did their own thing. It's awesome.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and there are a lot of artists like that too. But I think the labels just have a lot to do with swaying artists. Like, and you got to think about what position they're in.
Yeah.
You want to keep on going, and they don't want to lose their record deals, and they don't want to fall off into obscurity, and that's a big fear for a lot of artists, I'm sure. So I think a lot of the blame needs to be placed on the big machine and the powers that be, for sure.
Oh yeah, because I mean that like I remember like Joe Nichols was a big fan. Like I was a huge fan of Joe Nichols for a
Oh,
long time.
love Joe Nichols.
And then there was like a period where he kind of disappeared for a bit, and then would come back, and then he would kind of disappear, and then he would come back. Um, I
Yeah.
have a funny story about meeting him. That was crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was he played a tequila. They have a tequila cowboy location here. Like there's one
Mm,
in Nashville. There was one in Ohio. Now there's one in Pittsburgh, and he's just playing he's playing in Pittsburgh here. And so they had a guitar out front that you could auction to win or whatever. So I looked at the
right.
merch guy and I was like, "How much is it if I just buy that guitar?" He's like, $300. And I was like, Hezzy, I'll tell you what, because you buy that guitar right now, because I'll take you on the bus after the show. And I'm like, I looked at my brother and he's like, you only live once, you might as well do it. And like I walk on the bus. We had a couple drinks in us, and I'm walking up the steps, and he's just sitting there, just chilling, like in like the seat, and I'm just, hey, like and I told him I was like, man, I really thought you were gonna do footlights like for your Merle Haggard song tonight. And he's
Yeah.
like, you know what? He goes, I almost did that. And as he's signing the guitar, you could hear him like just Well, tonight I kicked the foot. And you're like, yeah. I was like, I looked at my brother. I'm like, Gee. Like, this is so cool. But
Yeah, he had for a while on YouTube. He did Merle Mondays or something, and he would get on and sing a Merle Haggard song. He can sing the heck out of Merle. I love Joe Nichols. He's great.
yeah, he's one of those guys where he has such like a it's just his voice. He can almost sing anything and it'd be great.
Yep, yep.
Yeah. Well, man, we've been going for about an hour. I appreciate you taking the time to do the podcast with me. Why don't you, if you want to tell people where they can find you?
Yeah, if you just search Dillon Weldon, that's Dillon. Uh, Anywhere you can pretty much find me. My podcast name is Drifting Cowboy. It's on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube, and we got lots of cool stuff coming up. So check us out. If you're a real country music fan, you'll enjoy it. I promise you.
Right on, man. And I'm gonna add that to my my Spotify listens for podcasts because I need to divvy up the Rogan and the Theo Vaughn. All right, it's getting
Yeah, yeah.
after a while you start talking like Theo Vaughn. It's like, all right, this ain't fun no more. Yeah, man, I appreciate you coming on, and I hope everybody checks out your podcast. And I'd like to have you on again, like in the future or something, if you got something
Yeah,
going on.
anytime, man.
Yeah, if you're ever in
Anytime.
Pittsburgh, or if I'm ever in Nashville or something, we got to at least meet up for a beer or something.
Yeah, maybe in Nashville. My buddy Holiday lives up in Pennsylvania, and the way he talks about it, I don't ever want to go.
Well, the roads are shit. I will tell you that right now.
That's what
Like,
he said. He said the roads suck, the weather sucks.
oh yeah, especially dude. Every time driving over a pothole, you feel like the Dukes of Hazzard. Like you're just like doing little jumps the whole way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. He talks about it. He's like it's always gloomy. The weather sucks. The road sucks. Pennsylvania is horrible. Don't ever come.
it's. I mean, there's some cool things like we got the Steelers and stuff, got some hockey stuff, but that's about it. Baseball's
Yeah.
we don't even talk about it. They're not even. We just have guys cosplaying as baseball players out here.
There
But
you go.
yeah. But anyway, guys, I thank you for tuning in or whatever. Yeah, check you out, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you.
All right.